Hi folks, and welcome to this episode of Michael's Backyard Marina. Today I'm going to talk about a Diawa reel. I'm going to show you how I line my reels up, how I line up on my reel. This is brought to you today by my dad. He sent me this reel as a gift. Thank you so much. Love you, Dad. We're going to show you how I put line on this reel so you can save yourself a little money. I love to use braid, but you don't want to fill one of these up full of just braid. So I'm going to show you how I do it. Other people do it the same way. You may have different techniques. This is just what I found that works for me. Saves you a little money in the long run. Some of the features I do like about this reel is when you pop the bail open, or open it for releasing the line, that this auto trips. I have another reel that does not auto trip like this. I have two other reels that do, an Akuma that does, but it's not as high a quality as this. And I also have another one that I bought recently that does the same thing. The other thing I like about this, I love the bait alert on this. So when you got this open and it's on, when the fish takes off with your line, that's a wonderful thing. Then you can click it off when you're ready to reel it in. It's a very smooth, as you can see, it's got nice bearings in it. It runs really good. The counter seems to be really solid. The one thing I didn't like about my Akuma is the counter wasn't always clicking. It would skip and stuff like that. This one seems to be a very nice setup. It seems very crisp. So we're going to line it up. I love trolling. That's why I like these depth reels. I love to troll. I love to know that if I'm hitting a depth at 60 foot of line out, trolling at 1.8 miles an hour, then I'm at 15 feet deep with 60 foot of line. I can repeat that over and over instead of trying to count out the feet by going 2, 4, 6 and stuff like that. So that's what I like about these, and I also like dropping bait down on top of things. That's where a depth counter comes in handy as well. So let's get started. I'm going to show you how I put line on the reel. Okay folks, first thing I do, here my dog's going crazy upstairs. First thing I do is I select a base line. I do two types of line on my bait casters, or any of my bait casters or line counter reels. Now the reason I do that is because typically this is a Power Pro, not my favorite braid line, but for what I'm using it for, I'm not trying to cast it. I'm just using it for trolling, and I'm using it for dropping down to depth. So I just bought some Power Pro, but it's still not cheap. But my favorite Suffix 832. That seems to cast the smoothest. I've used Sunline, I've used Spider Wire. Suffix is my favorite. But what I'm going to do here is use my trilene as a base wrap around here, because it gets expensive when you cast, or when you fill up an entire reel. When you fill it up with braid, it gets very expensive. So what I like to do is use either a mono line or fluorocarbon line. It doesn't matter which to me, and I'll use it as a base. So now I'm putting 50 pound test braid for troll in here, and I'm going to use a 20 pound base, which is a pretty good size diameter, to fill up about half this spool. What that'll do to me is it'll allow me, like on 150 yard worth of line, I can actually spool this thing up twice. So basically you get twice the bang for your buck. So if you do happen to hang up some line and you're trying to rely on your line counter to give you accurate count, it gives you more accurate count closer to full than it does closer to empty. So what I like to do is that way I can refill this up again, but it only costs me half as much by doing that. So that's what I'm going to do here. Now I like to tie the line on with it off the rod. It makes it easier to handle, because sometimes feeding it through and tying it and wrapping it around is easier. But what I'll do first off is I like to take my rod, and I can wind it while it's on a rod, is I'll go ahead and run this through the eyelet of my rod. I don't know if you can see that there. But I got my rod laying here, ran it through the eyelet of the rod. I'll run it through the front of the guide here. And then, because it's easier to run through all this, sometimes with it off you can feed it down, around, and through. Alright, now then all I do, you guys might think this is crazy, but all I do is a simple square knot here. Nothing fancy. Nice thing is when you tie the square knot, you don't have to have it all the way down tight yet. Once you get the second part of your knot through, you can pull it down tight. That's what I typically do. Pull it down good and tight, and then you can clip off your what's called the tag line, the excess. So now I'm through my loop, and I'm ready. Now the reason I run it through my rod is because then I like to stick this back on my rod here. And by doing that, I can actually hold tension here while I reel. Once I get it up to where I think, that takes up quite a bit of the reel space. Let's see if I can show this to you here. Get in the picture. So I've got enough room for about 75 yards of 50 pound there. And the 50 pound test is only 12 pound equivalent. So now what I do, once I've got it that far, knocking everything over here, I'm going to tie the other line on with a uni knot. And I'll show you how I do a uni knot. Okay, so what I've got here, folks, is I've got this line with the end over here, bring it this way. You've got the other line, it doesn't matter which one, with the end pointing the opposite direction. Give yourself a generous amount of line, overlap them. So now you got two lines here, one point one way, one point the other. Now I'm going to take the clear one that's over here, I'm going to loop it around. So now I have both strands on top. I have this looped around like this. Then I'm going to wind this around these two 7 times. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So now I'm around 7 times. Now I want to grab this end, and I'm going to grab the other clear end, and I'm going to pull it down. So you can see it starting to pull down like that. When it starts to bunch up a little bit on the green line, I'll take the green line and just pull it straight. So now it's still straight. And then I'll grab the clear line again and I'll pull it down a little tighter. You see how the green line starts to bunch up a little bit? Then I'll pull that straight. There might be an easier way to do this. This is the way I do it. Pull it straight. And I grab this tag line and pull it again. Pull the green. Until I get it, it's now sucking down tight onto that line. So I've got a nice knot going there. And then I'll pull the green one last time here just to kind of make sure it's straight and relaxed a little bit. So then you got a knot that's where it's wrapped around like that. It's kind of hard to see on the clear. But then what I'll do is I'll take the green line then and I'll loop it around. I'll come around over and under like this, pointed. Now I've got this looped around. So it's like this. And then I'll wrap around these two with that one. And I'll do the same thing 7 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now I'll pull the green line tight. And you'll start to see it make a knot around the clear. And the clear doesn't, the mono doesn't seem to, or fluorocarbon doesn't seem to bunch up as easy. So you can pull that on down. Sometimes before I pull it tight, I'll kind of make sure the knot's not overlapping itself. And then let's grab it again here. We'll pull it down a little tighter. So now it's got a nice little neat row. Then what you do is you grab each of the lines themselves without the tag line. So I got my hand on this end and this end. Then I'll start pulling them, and the knots will slide toward each other like that. And before I get them all the way tight, I'll give the clear one last little tug just to make sure it's kind of bit down on that braided line. And I'll do the same thing with the braided lines. I'll give it a little tug, and then I'll wet it a little bit. Once you got it wet, then you can just take and pull them down together, and they'll just make a nice little knot holding on to each other, and that will not slip. That is a tight knot. So then you can cut these tags off really close to the line. I mean, like right on it. So there's virtually nothing there. And I'll show you here. And I'll grab it down here on the braid. Now the braid doesn't like to cut as easy, obviously, as the mono. Keep your finger out of it. But then, you get that thing. So now you got a clean knot. I can pull on that, that's not gonna break. One of the lines are gonna give before that knot gives. Now I'm ready to spool on my braid. So let's do that. So now that we have a little more line on here, the line counter will become more accurate. So what I'll do is I'll take this, and these are nicer when they have a clear spool or clear thing. You can see if you actually use about half. But what I'll do is I'll wind on out of this 150 yards. Once I get the line started like that, let's reset it, and I'll wind on about 225 feet. We'll see how things are looking then. So we're going to keep going until I get down to about 775. And there again, folks, I was just guessing on how much I put on that first to see how full it would fill this up. But it looks like it's going to come out pretty nice, in my opinion. We're down to 800. We'll go down to 775. We'll call that a day at the park. Because that's, reality, folks, that's 225 foot of line. And as you can see now, the spool is not overfilled, but filled enough. I like the way that looks. Okay, something else I enjoy doing is seeing how accurate these are. So what I'll do is I'll actually pull out some line here. I've got a 3-foot clear scale here, and I'll pull out a few feet here and just hit my 0, click my bail shut basically, as it were, reset this to 0, and then I'll reel in to here. Then I'll look and see. Kind of hard to see, but it's right at 997 is what I ended up with. How come I can't get that the right angle here? So I ended up at 997. And when you let it out, you should get the same kind of deal. We'll pull it out, 3 foot, and that rolls right back to 0. So that's pretty accurate. I like that a lot. But that's what I like to do, just because it's just a fun way to check. So when you know you're letting out 60 foot, you are letting out 60 foot of line, and not just a counter being a counter. It actually means something. Sometimes they're not as accurate, and you can let out line and you're letting out 60, which is nice. If you're catching fish at 60, then you know you can go back to 60 again. But if you're using your fish finder and the fish are at 25, and you want to put it on 25, but this here you can drop it to 25. That's a beautiful thing. All right. All that's left to do now is fish. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful. Hope you find maybe it's a tech tip you didn't know about that you can use, save you some money on some line. Like I said, I do it on all my bait casters. The nice thing is when I have to reline my bait casters next year, I usually like to reline them every year. Then I only have to waste a little bit of line. I pull out 75 yards of line, put 75 yards on, I'm back up to speed. All the line that's underneath it really hasn't been exposed to the elements, to UV light or anything like that, so it should be in pretty good shape. So you don't have to replace that every year. It's also a nice cushion and gives that line something to bite onto when you're reeling in that big fish. So hope you like what you saw. Hit the like button if you like it. Subscribe if you like what you see. This is the type of thing I like to do on a regular basis, is how-tos and what I do's type of thing. So get out there and do something fun, folks. Enjoy life. If you're not enjoying your life, you got to ask yourself why. Find something that you enjoy doing. Do it as often as you can, and let's be happy, folks. Get out there and fish. Have a good day.